Welcome to Sip Sip Hooray, where we celebrate everything that's fun about wine, minus the hangovers. And speaking of, our guests today are all about enjoying wine without the negative toll that booze can take on our bodies. Null claims to be 100% wine minus the alcohol, and they're finding their way into homes everywhere as people look for ways to enjoy wine without the buzz and the calories. Our guests today are Catherine Diao and Dorothy Mulholland, founders of Studio Null. We are the two Marys who like to eat, drink, and be merry. I'm Mary Babbitt.
And I'm Mary Orland. Call it sober curious, mindful, or buzzless drinking. Non-alcoholic drinks are growing in popularity and demand. New technologies and creators are providing an amazing array of zero-proof options, no matter your reason for being alcohol-free. Today's non-alcoholic wines offer a strikingly similar presentation and experience to the traditional full ABV wines, thanks in part to Null founders Dorothy Mulholland and Catherine Diao. We are so excited that the duo are here today to share their story, their journey, and how they came up with the concept for Null Wines and how it is making a difference in everyday drinking. So, Catherine, Dorothy, welcome to Sip Sip Hooray.
Great. Thank you so much. We're really excited to be here having this conversation with you two.
Well, we're happy to have both of you, Catherine and Dorothy. And I think I'd like to start with how you guys got started, because the whole notion of non-alcohol wines is kind of buzzy right now and kind of trendy. So I'd like to know how you guys got into it and what made you want to start your own wine brand.
Sure. Well, Catherine and I have known each other for a long time. We are college friends. We met our freshman year. And so we've known each other through various phases of our lives. And I'll say in the last few years, as our careers have been progressing, we've continued to be folks who enjoy wine and pairing wine with meals and enjoying wine with friends. But we started to feel the effects of alcohol and how it wasn't perhaps serving us in all of the ways that we were able to handle when we were younger. So we personally were both interested in non-alcoholic beverages and non-alcoholic wines. And we were looking for something that we would be really excited about in a similar fashion to the wines that we were enjoying with alcohol. So transparency in sourcing, interesting varietals and provenance, and we just weren't finding something that we would be really excited to pair with a meal or to bring to a party and share with our friends. And so we started to think about what might a non-alcoholic wine brand that we would be excited about look like and feel like. So we started thinking about that. We sort of felt it's only a matter of time before something great enters the US market. We saw that non-alcoholic beverages, and in particular non-alcoholic wine, was growing quite quickly in particularly European markets and other markets across the world. So we were sort of waiting for it to come, and it wasn't. And so we thought, okay, we have this idea. Maybe we should give it a try ourselves.
That's fantastic. So what I think is really curious is, there have been movements before about, being sober, and it started, we had dry January and then sober October, and now there's dry July. And just a little geeky note here, according to Nielsen IQ, which is a company that tracks trends in beverage sales, non-alcoholic wine took up 13.4% of sales in 2002, with a market worth $52.4 million, up 23.2% from 2021. So clearly there's a demand, there's interest. So how do you respond to this market?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're seeing is that attitudes towards drinking less seem to be evolving very quickly. I think, at least in our communities, maybe 5 years ago, it would have been a little bit of a sticking out if you chose to opt out of drinking. And I think a lot of people's attitudes and habits around drinking changed a lot during the pandemic. So we've been approaching this market with kind of a new set of eyes. Dorothy and I are both wine lovers, but not winemakers by training. And so we came at it really from the attitude of not having to fit into any standardized box, not having to label things in a black and white way, sober or not sober. We really just approach it as people who sometimes like to drink and sometimes like to not be drinking alcohol. And I think that has really helped us consider what kind of products we're bringing to market and connect with a lot of the consumers who fall into the same camp as us. I think maybe in that same study, but a couple of other ones out there, about 80% of the consumers who are buying non-alcoholic adult beverage products are people who also sometimes drink. So I think we're really starting to see this kind of shift towards people making choices that make sense for their personal preferences, for their health goals, for whatever goals they have, without having to be so distinctly sober or sober curious or a wine drinker.
Right. So that notion that it's a quality beverage that you can enjoy when you don't really want to feel the effects of alcohol, either on your sleep or just on your functioning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many of our customers and the people who were really excited to be some of the first folks to try Studio Null were people who have very sophisticated palates, who have loved wine maybe for decades. And we're coming at this with a really high taste bar and a really high bar for understanding provenance, understanding how something is made. And so we really wanted to approach this category from that angle, with treating consumers, no matter what their choice of ABV is for the night, with a level of respect. And so I think that's been something that's really helped inform how we approach making each product.
What have some of the hurdles been in terms of how to make a wine without alcohol taste good, taste high quality? You know, because in the earlier versions of non-alcohol wines, in my opinion, tended to be pretty sweet. It was like they took out the alcohol but added sugar or something. And I noticed your wines are not sweet. They're not exactly the same as wine, but I can tell that you've approached it with a wine palate.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of ways to answer your question. One is in a technical way, and the other is in maybe more of a psychosomatic way. So you mentioned having tried non-alcoholic wines in the past, and non-alcoholic wine is certainly not conceptually something that's totally new. Folks who have tried non-alcoholic wine in the past may have had a bad experience with it because it had that very juicy, sweet, maybe even syrupy profile that is not what you're looking for when you're drinking wine. And I think that came from this category of non-alcoholic beverages or non-alcoholic wine really being an afterthought previously. So that kind of leads into the more technical side of things, which is in the past, I think non-alcoholic wine has been produced using wines that you wouldn't perhaps want to drink even with the alcohol. And when you put wine through a dealcoholization process, it certainly doesn't make a bad wine good. So one of the approaches that we've taken with Studio Null, and Catherine touched on this, you know, appreciating that our customer has a high bar when it comes to taste, is starting with really premium wines. So our process is sourcing high quality, fully fermented, fully alcoholic wines, taking it through a gentle distillation process that actually removes the alcohol or the ethanol out with a vacuum pressure that allows you to raise the wine to a certain temperature without boiling it, trapping the aromas and flavors and other volatile compounds that may be distilled out with the alcohol and reintegrating those into the base wine without the alcohol. And then applying some finishing methods calibrated to the origin wine itself to make sure that it has the body and is expressive of the origin wine. So we have taken a really cautious approach when it comes to adding flavors or aromas or sweeteners into the wine, which I think has been done in the past because it becomes a bit more formulaic and it's easy to replicate the same taste over and over if you're putting additives in. We really want the original wine to be expressive of where it came from. And, we've had some somms blind taste our wines and be able to say, okay, this is coming from a specific region and these are the varietals. So that's been exciting for us. And
that is exciting.
Hopefully we can continue to push the needle in terms of what folks can expect out of a non-alcoholic wine.
Sure. Well, some of the varieties you work with are definitely more European in their origins and may or may not be something that wine drinkers here in the States are familiar with. Your latest releases, you've got a sparkling Verdejo being the white wine of the Rueda region in Spain. You've also got Gruner Weiss, white wine blend, and Gruner Veltliner, people may know as the white wine of Austria. And then you've got a Garnacha, also from a region of Catalonia in Spain. So why did you all decided to work with sources in Europe versus, say, California?
Yeah, I think our approach to begin with, we've visited a lot of the facilities that are doing top-notch dealcoholization across the world. And our first rounds, we wanted to work with organizations that had some experience under their belt so that we could come out with the best quality product. And so for our first rounds, we were really excited to find partners in Europe that were excited to work with us on something that is a little bit of a unexpected when you're a winemaker to be approached about making non-alcoholic wine. So we were really happy to work with folks who are interested in this next wave of wine, which is non-alcoholic wine. And I think also as we were selecting the varietals and the types of wine that we wanted to be dealcoholizing, because Catherine and I don't come from a typical wine making background, but we are wine lovers, a thing that we love and we were missing with non-alcoholic wines was finding unique varietals and being able to taste through different wines and see that there is a difference from one non-alcoholic wine to the next. It was also really interesting for us to be able to work with varietals that maybe didn't have such an expectation around what it would taste and feel like. Because when you remove alcohol from wine, you are, I think I heard someone once describe it as removing a load-bearing wall, which is very true. It's an intensive process. And so it does change some of the fundamentals of the wine for sure. And so when you're talking about a non-alcoholic Pinot Noir from Sonoma, there was a lot more expectation around what that's going to taste like.
Interesting.
Sparkling Verdejo from Rueda.
Oh, that's really smart. I get that. Well, speaking of the sparkling Verdejo, why don't we go ahead and taste that now? I really enjoyed this one. I'm going to pour a little bit more here.
Me too.
This was really nice. It's crispy. It's fresh. It's got nice fruit and the bubbles. It's lovely. And I read somewhere once that bubbles help in your mouth. You don't notice you don't notice a lack of alcohol because of the bubbles. Do you guys find that that's true?
Yeah, so that's definitely a big part of it. So alcohol and ethanol plays a big part in the mouthfeel and the body that you expect in wine. And so when you lose that, it is definitely helpful to have some amount of carbonation to bring that texture back to the wine. So I think typically sparkling non-alcoholic wines are the first that I'd recommend to someone who's trying non-alcoholic wine for the first time. We've had folks tasting through our sparkling wines and question whether or not there really wasn't any alcohol in it because it has a very, very similar profile.
Oh, that's interesting. That's great. So what was interesting to me is that, this bottle has a cork just like a sparkling wine bottle would have. And once you open it up, so I put because I opened it maybe 2 days ago. And so I put one of those champagne stoppers on to keep the gas in and put it in the fridge. And 2 days later, it's still beautiful. But what's the expectation once you open this or your other wines? Are they going to, oxygen is such a, it's wine's enemy. And do these have a longer life in the bottle once opened, shorter life? How does that work?
Yeah. So our suggestion for folks is to treat our non-alcoholic wines the same way they would wines. So after a bottle's been opened, we usually recommend refrigerating those bottles and consuming them in the next few days. We've had folks drink them further out than that. And we've also done some experimenting of drinking them further out than that. And they're all right. / sometimes I like the way that some of the taste profiles can evolve over time with more exposure to oxygen. But in general, we recommend that people just really treat these the way they would treat wine at home or when they're out with friends or bringing it to a dinner party or at a restaurant. So we have a kind of a standard shelf life of a couple of years, but that's only because we've only had a couple of years to these wines in our cellars. So we have some hypotheses that they could potentially keep and evolve with time in the ways that traditional wine does. And we're putting those hypotheses to the test as we speak.
That's super fun. I mean, you don't know because it hasn't been around long enough to find out. So that'll be a fun experiment to see. But I had that same question, like, gee, are you supposed to drink them right away? And then once opened. So that's good to know. Treat them like a regular bottle of wine for now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are lower calorie. I couldn't help but notice that. That made me really happy.
Yeah. And, I think we're in a very interesting moment right now where I think a lot of people are becoming more savvy about what they put into their bodies and thinking about their health. And alcohol just happens to be one of those areas, especially in the US, where there's not a ton of transparency into what the nutritional, quote unquote, nutritional value is. So I think it's been a really interesting learning process, actually, for a lot of our customers who report back to us that they're pleasantly surprised to see that calorie count. And it's because alcohol has a lot of calories in it. So when you're removing the alcohol, you're removing the majority of the caloric load of a glass of wine. And so we didn't go into this with kind of a calorie cutting view in mind. I think that just happens to be one of the added benefits if that's something that's a priority to you, but it's not something that we consider in the product development process. And yeah, I think it's kind of reflective of where things are headed as people look at nutrition labels and ask for more transparency into what they're putting in their bodies. Non-alcoholic can help frame that conversation as people are making choices about what they want to drink tonight.
Sure. And also, on the back labels of these bottles, at least for the Garnacha and the Gruner Weiss, you have vintage dates on that, which I wasn't expecting with non-alcoholic wine. But I guess it makes sense because you start off with a full-blown winemaking process, right?
Yes. And I think one of the things we were also really excited about as folks who sometimes want to have a night out but not be drinking alcohol was this idea that every one of our wines is coming from a real place at a real time, And I think sometimes when you're drinking a beverage, you can get kind of far away from that concept, whether it's kind of cracking a soda or, chugging a sports drink or whatever. It can feel kind of just like it appeared, it was manufactured and it appeared. And with our wines, we really wanted to depart from that and move towards a lot more sense of place and sense of time. And it's also just kind of a reality, and it's a kind of count in the transparency column because, right, harvest happens once a year. These grapes were harvested at this time and then made into wine. And I think it helps people to kind of connect the dots backwards to know that.
Mm-hmm. And I even noticed with the bottles, the labels, everything about it, they're elegant. You're not mass producing, a beverage. This is akin to any fine wine house and the bottles they would put out. These are beautiful labels and really nice bottlings.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we were happy to bring these bottles into people's homes and onto menus. The wines have been embraced by some fine dining establishments, which has been really amazing to see. And that's what we wanted. We wanted these non-alcoholic wines to be able to stand up to those fine dining experiences, those pairing experiences, and not feel like a compromise or a big trade-off. So happy
And
to
it's
hear
not cheap. I mean, it's not
that.
$2 chuck pricing either. It's, you guys have put them at a price point that says, these are quality. Yeah. Was
Yeah.
that your goal at least?
Yeah. And I think what our goal was to make the best quality product we could as an introduction into the category, because this is an area where I think there's going to be a lot of innovation, and we're excited to be kind of on the bleeding edge of that. But we wanted people's first impressions, if this was going to be their first time drinking non-alcoholic wine, to be as good as they could possibly be. And so we started with premium grapes. We're adding additional processes. So a lot of people expect non-alcoholic wines to be significantly cheaper than regular wines because there's no alcohol, which kind of tells you a lot about the psyche around paying for alcohol and what we value. But we are actually taking the wine through several additional expensive steps. So usually when we explain that to folks about our process and the way that we're delivering these kind of final results, it kind of clicks. But your knee-jerk reaction can sometimes be like, oh, well, this is minus alcohol, so minus dollars.
Right, exactly. So that's one misconception about the non-alcoholic wines. What are some others that you've come across?
I think there is this real perception when folks are approaching it for the first time. Maybe they've tried some of the previously available products that kind of were available in grocery stores, or they associate it with Martinelli's. And I think they are expecting sometimes a product that's very sweet. Most non-alcoholic beverages that have been served to date, in a restaurant, on a menu, or as the alternative at a party, have had a pretty sweet profile. So I think we're entering this kind of fun new era of diversifying that range of tastes that are serving non-alcoholic needs. So we're seeing more bitter products, we're seeing higher acid products, and I think we are excited to be delivering something that, Mary, you touched on, which is a drier profile. So that's one misconception I think we see a lot as people approach non-alcoholic wine for the first time.
Well, speaking of dry, but delicious, I also really enjoyed the Gruner. So let's go ahead and go.
Yes.
Will you talk us through that one? I think the sparkling Verdejo is around $36, 34, 36. And am I right on that? And the Gruner, I think, is like 32. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. That's okay. So tell us about this wine.
Yeah, so the Gruner just officially launched today. Actually, we had a little pre-sale announcement a week ago, but today is the first day it's available to the public, and we're really excited. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback so far. We think that this is a step further in the direction of replicating a wine-like experience, because we think we've advanced significantly on the aftertaste in this one. So that's something that, is typically carried with the ethanol, and with this Gruner Weiss, which is a blend between Gruner Veltliner and Gelber Muscateller. We're really excited to hopefully be advancing that even further. We worked with a young female winemaker from Austria on this one. She's taken over some of the operations at a very established, long-running family vineyard in Austria. And 75% of the world's Gruner is coming from Austria. So it felt like this is the interesting winemaker story, but it's also a really cool varietal to be highlighting from this part of the world. I think for this moment, it's coming out mid-July. It's a very easy drinking summer wine. And so that was part of what we were thinking about when we developed this one, was when folks would be receiving it and how it could fit into their summer wine drinking and meal pairing. But it's also a super versatile grape. So both Gruner and Gelber Muscateller are super versatile. So we were excited to hopefully take a step forward in developing a wine that we can keep on our shelves a little bit more. We produced more of this wine, and we are excited for folks to be able to try this varietal in a non-alcoholic format.
Yeah, what's great about it is it does have so much of that Gruner varietal character, the lime, the high acid, the herbalness. I'm not familiar with Gelber Muscateller. That's new for me. But, what does that add to the blend?
Yeah, that adds a lot of dimension when it comes to the aromatics.
This has really good floral aromatics. I love that.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that. That's something that the aromatics are some of the compounds that are the most volatile, so they can often be lost during the dealcoholization process. So that was something we were really thinking about, because obviously aroma plays a huge part in how we experience wine. And so we wanted to bring that back into our non-alcoholic wine experience.
And I'm going to just do a quick shout out to Dorothy here, who has a pretty extensive background in fragrance and fine perfume making. So she's got a pretty great palette for aromatics. And I think that's also helped us in this product development process.
Okay, wait. You have to tell me more, because I'm a perfume fanatic too.
Here we go.
Tell me. I want to know more.
Yeah. We touched on a little bit. Neither of us come from a winemaking background. I, for the last decade or so, have worked in beauty. And for the latter part of that, or more recent part of that, I worked for a perfume maker on product development. So it was not an industry that I expected to land in, but it was one that once I was there, I really loved the combination of artistry and science that goes into perfume making when you're talking about just the world's best chemists who are also artists in a way.
Right.
And I think that has really lent itself to getting into wine and winemaking too, because there's a lot of technical knowledge. There's also a ton of artistry and decisions that are being made based on a gut feeling. And so that has been a fun parallel. And even though I'm the one with the perfume background, I will say Catherine has an excellent palette as well.
That's great. That's great. Well, I always like to compare wine and perfume as being these are aromatic experiences, and wine evolves in the glass just like a perfume evolves on the skin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
True.
I mean, there's this headspace, which is sort of the first elements that you experience when you open a bottle or when you pour a glass. And then the heavier the element or compound, the later it blossoms and bouquets into something. So, and that also is why Catherine and I both share the opinion that sometimes our wines are better even on the second day, because they're evolving as you would expect with traditional wine. And so it's fun. It's always a cool experiment to try it one day and then try it the next and see how it's changed.
So I have to ask you, do you have a favorite perfume or family of florals, whether it's floral, gourmand, spice, that you gravitate towards?
The beauty of working in it is my favorites change depending on what I'm working on or the time of year that it is. Mm-hmm. I've been exposed to so many different perfumes, and I'll say when I started working in perfume, I thought that I was definitely not a rose or a floral person. Mm-hmm. But starting to work with rose and florals and work with the top perfume makers and understand the thinking and the formulation behind it, you're steeped in rose and floral, and then suddenly you realize you're wearing it because you love it so much. And so it's hard for me to pick a favorite. There are categories that I reach for more, but I kind of see perfume as like an element of dressing. So it depends what I'm doing. If I'm going to the beach, it's a very different perfume than if I'm wearing a velvet dress for a black tie event. Not that I do that often, but
yeah, but I totally agree with you. And it's just like wine. People ask me, what's your favorite wine? Like, well, I have these ones that I kind of lean towards, but it depends on my mood, depends on where I am, who I'm with. Same with perfume.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Well, how do you guys decide? The two of you have been working together from the start on this? How do you divvy up the duties? Do you take it? Do you work together on all parts of the business, or does one handle one thing while the other something different?
I think there are natural categories where Dorothy will have more expertise or I'll have a little bit more experience. And so we do divvy things up a bit that way, but we also started this business because we love each other's company and like building things and creating things together. So we do kind of ski together on a lot of the core pillars of the business. And so far that's been a lot of fun because I have a saying, and it's not perfect, but it's like, if you're with someone you really like even if you're going through hell, like you're doing it together and it's still an experience, like you can kind of still have a good time. Yeah. So that's been how we've made the decisions about who's going to spearhead what up till now.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. We have another wine to taste. This is the Solo Garnacha. Am I saying that right? Or is it Garnacha?
Yeah. Garnacha.
Garnacha.
For a lot of folks, they're seeing that for the first time, but it's just Spanish for Grenache.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. And this is from the mountains of Spain. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about this wine? This is a red.
Yeah. So I think we've made the journey from perhaps, easy to polarizing when it comes to non-alcoholic wine. So whereas sparkling is the first wine that I'd point someone towards in their non-alcoholic wine journey, red is the one that people have stronger opinions on. They've been looking for a really great non-alcoholic wine. And so they have a lot of emotionality when it comes to trying. This wine is a single varietal. We've also explored doing some blends on red wine in particular that I think is interesting and adds depth and dimension, but we really wanted to offer something that was super expressive of the varietal that folks are familiar with, mostly as Grenache, but Garnacha from Spain. This is an area that we're continuing to try to push the needle on because I think there's a lot of psychology when it comes to red wine and what you expect from a big red, a lot of flavor, very robust. And as we said before, if you're removing 17% of anything, sometimes the ABV can get up that high. You're losing a lot of body. And we certainly don't want to be dumping in a lot of sugar to balance that out and make up for it. And so it can be kind of a dry, tannic experience, but that we've found has really resonated with folks who are looking for that mouthfeel that you get from really rich red.
What's interesting to me, as it hits my mouth, it feels maybe lighter. Maybe that's minus the alcohol. It gives it a lighter, maybe fresher feeling in your mouth. So it's like if you change the mindset of how it's going to be in your mouth and like that experience of like the heavy alcohol feel, almost like the burn of an alcohol. This doesn't have that, but it does have the fruit and the dryness. You can taste the tannins, but in kind of a lighter, fresher way is how I approached it.
I would agree with that totally. And, you definitely get the blue and black fruit and you get a little bit of earthiness too.
Yeah. I would say that this one would be better. I would like to have this with food. I think that would be rather than just like the other two I could see sitting by the pool or whatever. They're light and they work just on their own. And I like this, but I think I would really like to see how it works with food. I think that would be a nice enhancement. What is this like with a steak? What is this like with a bowl of pasta?
Yeah, totally. And I think both Catherine and I have favored this wine and others at different times based on what we're looking to get out of it. And this one's definitely nice when I've had experiences and folks have written in with their experiences, kind of pouring a glass of red wine, cooking dinner and serving dinner. And then sort of at the end of the night, realizing, oh, I was drinking non-alcoholic red wine this whole time. I forgot there was no alcohol.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Oh.
That's got to be a big compliment for you.
Yeah, we definitely love to hear that.
So, do you all see the interest in non-alcoholic wines continuing to grow, or is this a trend that's gonna, slow down anytime soon? Like we've seen so many trends recently. Like I'll just, cite the recent seltzer boom. That was huge, and now it's kind of fizzled off. Where do you see non-alcoholic wines going, and what's your next step with Null?
Yeah, I think this is really chapter one of what's going to be a long story for non-alcoholic wines. So a lot of people ask us if they think it's a trend, and I think we're probably headed in a direction where there's going to be a whole non-alcoholic section in fine wine establishments and liquor stores and places where you would usually be shopping for that bottle of wine. Some of the stats that we've seen that kind of lean in that direction is I think the US wine market is maybe $75 billion a year, something wild and large. And about half of American adults who currently drink are actively trying to drink less. So I think we're going to see quite a few non-alcoholic products come to the market over the next few years. I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in the category. And I think we're going to see a much broader adoption of non-alcoholic options on menus, in grocery stores, at those bottle shops that you love to explore. So our view, maybe obvious because we started a non-alcoholic wine company, is that this is a category that is just getting started and is probably going to be here to stay for a while.
I think you may be right. I think that there's a ton of interest in it. And with interest comes people working hard to make the wines taste better. And I think you guys have really hit on some great ones. And I congratulate you for it. And like I said, what's also really nice about these bottles, they look really good. It's got great photography. The artwork on your bottles are really nice. And it just looks like a really quality product.
Yeah, thank you so much. We actually partner with different artists on each of our releases. So the releases that you have, that's Joshua Owens, who's sort of a multi-hyphenate photographer who's also been a professional athlete and done many other things. And he's an amazing photographer. So we were really lucky to be able to use some of his works for this release. And in our newest release, there's a very interesting collage work from a duo, Louis and Louise, that does mixed media. So yeah, part of the concept is, variety is a little bit the spice of life. And with every release, we're excited to be working with different creators and different artists at many levels, from the liquid itself to the bottles.
That's fantastic. I mean, it just shows you that, there's so much creativity that goes into this, so much thought, and, leaving alone the process, because really your process goes several steps beyond what it takes to make most traditional wines.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the enjoyment of bringing these products to market. There is a lot that goes into it, and there are a lot of different creators that we're touching at different points in the process. And we kind of viewed Studio Null as a collaborative effort, and one where we're going to be constantly pushing ourselves and our partners, and they're going to be pushing us to try and evolve what non-alcoholic wine can be.
Love it. All right. Before we let you guys go, when you are not working with Null or Studio Null, tell me what you guys do for fun.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the Hudson Valley in upstate New York. I'm based in Brooklyn, but as a Midwestern gal, I try to get outside as much as I can. So I've been happy to enjoy some good moments hiking and hanging by the water this summer.
Oh, that's great, Dorothy. How about you, Catherine?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area, which is, I'm sure you can relate to this, Mary, like sort of an embarrassment of riches when it comes to nature and great outdoors things to do. So most weekend days, I'm trying to go for a hike or go for a swim, go for a bike ride. I love to be outside. I have that thing where if I'm not outside for a certain number of hours a day, I feel guilty, which is hard because work needs to get done and can't always get done outside.
Right.
So I love to do that. And I love to have fun meals with friends. I like to go to art openings and go to museums. I'm kind of a nerd for that stuff.
That's awesome. So good. And there's a lot of that in the Bay Area too.
Yeah, definitely. there's always amazing exhibits on, and that's something we're really lucky to have so much of around here.
So what can we expect to see next from Null? What are you all working on?
I think one of the very cool parts of starting this business is, and being open to this being a new category, is we get a ton of feedback from folks who are excited about non-alcoholic wine and people who've tried our wines about what they are looking for, the occasion that they're finding it to make the biggest difference in, whether it's that 5 p.m. glass of red that they're used to on the workday, or that popping the bottle to celebrate a big occasion. So it's been really helpful to kind of get tasting notes and feedbacks from tons of customers. And we're looking to sort of incorporate those learnings and the crowd favorites into our future productions, while also making tech advancements in the finish, the body, getting that kind of perfect hit of fruit and dryness and acidity, and really continuing to deliver things that are original and exciting for folks. I think that's the priority in the short term, I would say.
And is Studio Null available in wine shops, or are you an online only at this point?
Yeah, we are available online through our website, but we are also available in a handful of shops around the country, and that list is growing kind of every week, honestly. So we have some stockists that folks can find us at, but we're also always encouraging fine purveyors of beverages, many of whom are kind of seeing that their customers are looking for more low and no alcohol options, to get in touch with us, because we love to meet consumers where they are. And I think that's been a really fun part of building Studio Null, is all of the different points where people can be encountering these bottles and learning something and getting excited about some new possibilities for what their night can look like from a drinks perspective.
That's fantastic. Yes. And we will put some information on our show notes on our website, sipsiphooraypodcast.com, about where folks can find you.
All right. Catherine Diao and Dorothy Mulholland, it has been such a pleasure getting to meet both of you and learn about Studio Null. It's a really exciting space that you guys are in, and I appreciate the fact that you're going for a quality product. Thank you for sharing your wines with us and your story. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it's been really fun. So thank you so much for having us.
Well, thanks for joining us, and sip, sip, hooray to you and to Studio Null.
Sip, sip, hooray.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, Mary Babbitt, non-alcoholic wines are here to stay. I really believe it. And they are only getting better and better. And it was just so nice getting to know Catherine and Dorothy and seeing their dedication and their commitment to really producing not just a high quality beverage, but one that really gives you the experience of enjoying wine, even if it doesn't have alcohol.
Right. The fun varieties they're using, from Verdejo to the Spanish Grenache and Gruner Weiss. That was really fun. And just a nice alternative to an alcoholic beverage.
Absolutely. So whatever your reason is for not drinking alcohol, this is a really a better alternative than just a sparkling water or, a diet soda or something. Mm-hmm. So, you feel like you're still partaking in the experience of sharing wine with people, but, without the buzz. And I think that's only a good thing.
Right. We might all be a little healthier.
Yeah. My sleep might be a little better then.
Get better. Well, thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed our show today, we hope that you'll share it with others, and also that you'll take the time to rate and review us, and also follow us on whatever platform you're listening. If it's Spotify or Apple Music, wherever you're getting your podcast, if you'll just take a few moments and give us a review and then follow us, it really helps what we're doing, and it helps us find other listeners.
And we are on Substack. Sip Sip Hooray podcast is there. All of our episodes are there. And if you subscribe to our Substack, you will get an email as soon as we release every new episode, plus some other goodies that may come your way. And we are also very social. We're on Instagram and Facebook at Sip Sip Hooray podcast. And we would love to hear comments from you, what you thought about this episode, any questions, engage with us. We would love to hear from you.
Thanks so much for listening. And Mary Orland, this was fun. Can't wait to do it again.
Me too. And whether it's a full ABV wine or a glass of Studio Null, I toast and say sip, sip, hooray.
Sip, sip, hooray.